Just out this hour, India's economy has expanded 1.6% in the January to March quarter, but GDP has contracted by a record 7.3% for the financial year that ended in March. Rebecca Bundan joins us live from Mumbai. Rebecca, can you break down the key numbers for us?
Yes, absolutely. So the data for the January to March quarter has come through, showing growth of 1.6%. For the year overall, though, from April to March 2020 to 2021, we've seen a contraction of 7.3% because last year India did enter that recession that was induced by the pandemic and lockdown restrictions. And then in the last quarter of the year, the calendar year, there was growth of 0.4%, then picking up to 1.6% in the first quarter of this calendar year. But of course, we have to remember that these figures came through before the second wave really hit India and before these new local lockdowns came into effect in a lot of states in April. So these figures show what was essentially the start of what was looking like an economic recovery for India. But then, of course, that has been derailed now by the second wave of infections. And that's actually forced economists to now downgrade their forecasts for the current financial year, which runs from April until March next year. They were looking at double-digit growth, but now they're thinking that it could be more along the lines of single-figure growth because of the impact and because of local lockdown restrictions. So that's certainly what looked like an economic recovery that has now been derailed.
Yeah, Rebecca, also India's fiscal deficit hit a record last year. What does this say about the government's ability to offer more economic support?
Yes, well, the estimate shows that the fiscal deficit for the last financial year was 9.3% of GDP, which is very high. And we know that India's government in February announced a very high spending budget for this current financial year as well. So that really, really limits the room that it actually has to offer any kind of further fiscal stimulus. We did see a lot of spending last year. We're seeing the spending coming through in the budget. But it means that although there are calls from a lot of business leaders, even some economists are saying that because of the impact of this second wave on the economy, which has forced a lot of businesses to shut down, at least temporarily, and a lot of industries to stop, that there does need to be some kind of economic stimulus to support jobs. A lot of people are again losing their jobs now. A lot of businesses are being forced to close. So they're saying there's this need for more stimulus, but the government certainly is very limited in terms of its room for maneuver because of its high fiscal deficit.
Great. Thanks so much for that. Rebecca Bundan in Mumbai.